I work for the military. Some of those airplanes that flew over, I've actually worked on. It's a celebration of freedom.
I thought it was a very good American-focused, patriotic speech, avoided partisanship, which was very welcome.
Well, we're just wondering, like, this is not a political day per se. It's just an American day, and a little concerned it gets a little too political.
He kind of went over history lessons that we all grew up and knew, like kind of like beating a dead horse. So speak about the future. Where are we going from here instead of where we were? We know where we were. I want to know where we're going.
I mean, I think the military presence is great. Like, I love seeing the military. I like seeing the tanks, the planes flying over. I think it's awesome. I think it's an awesome addition to the 4th of July celebration and parade.
This is very similar to what we have in Brazil right now with our tropical Trump president. It is a similar approach, very military heavy. Our president is a former captain of the military, so maybe it makes a bit more sense. The military is more involved there. But you can definitely see like the tanks around, trucks, a lot of military officers. So it's a different take on a independence, freedom, liberty celebration, I guess.
I guess it feels more divided than it has in the past, right? You have groups of people walking around in their Trump apparel, and you have people that are giving them the evil eye. There's just a lot of uneasiness, really, with the two polarized groups when it comes to politics, which is a shame, really. Because, I think the U.S. should be about everyone coming together and being able to celebrate. We may have differing political views, we may have different ideas about how we want to get someplace, but we all want to get to the same place. We all want to be happy, we all want to have our freedom, we all want to enjoy life. And it sort of just makes me sad seeing all the polarization and just the anger really sort of under the surface.
The president promised a show of a lifetime, and it was an all-out Hollywood-style production with cameras on the president as he left the White House, broadcast on huge screens here to a fanfare of orchestral music. No expense was spared. Now, ahead of the address, there had been concern that the president might veer off script and turn a patriotic event into a political one on what is traditionally a day of unity. But the precise nature of the military flyovers meant that the president simply couldn't divert too much from the program, with flyovers showcasing the country's latest military purchases and the president's voice rising up over the noise of the jets. Now, there might not have been explicit references to the US's current adversaries, but the message was clear, with the president saying, "Our nation is stronger than it has ever been before. It is at its strongest now." A message with one eye on a 2020 re-election campaign and another on global tensions, including those currently ratcheting up with Iran, and a president clearly casting himself as commander-in-chief.
All right, let's get more on that now with Tyson Barker. He's a program director and fellow at the Aspen Institute in Germany. Tyson, good morning. Let's pick up on those global tensions and the message that the president was perhaps trying to send with that. What do you think that message was being sent to the world there, especially with these tensions with Iran?
Well, I actually think that this was much more domestically focused. As was hinted at, this did have some overtones of, how is he going to frame the narrative going into 2020, which is the U.S. has never been stronger than it is right now. It's kind of the opposite of what Reagan said in 1980. Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? What Trump is saying is the U.S. has never been better. So that's, if there is a political message from this speech, that was it. But the truth is that, as was mentioned, for President Trump, he was quite disciplined. And actually, this was quite a unifying speech in some ways. Yes, it was very military-oriented, but at the same time, it focused on America, all Americans, and the achievements of all Americans. He mentioned many people, many events, many milestones that the U.S. has accomplished, both Republicans and Democrats. And that is seen as somewhat refreshing and out of step for the president, who usually uses this kind of things for campaign-style messaging.
What did you take away from what we saw yesterday in terms of what to look for in the campaign leading up to next year, 2020, the presidential election?
Well, I mean, it's just continuing that upward slope. So he's got this long litany of achievements that the U.S. has had over the past 200 years. And as mentioned, U.S. has never been better. That's going to be his message going into 2020. Let's continue this upward slope. And, he put one marker out there. He said, let's get to Mars. That was the one kind of policy goal that he set. But as was mentioned, a lot of people who have criticized or critiqued this speech have said, you know, it was too focused on the past. Where is the future-oriented element to celebrating the United States? Where is it going from here? That was somewhat missing from the speech.
You said this was a domestic message, and it was perhaps surprising to hear this call for unity from this president. Did you buy it from someone who has been so politically divisive?
As mentioned, it's quite out of character for the president. But I think for the American people who are a little bit, they have a lot of fatigue from the polarization that has been kind of plaguing the United States from before Trump, but is definitely kind of the tone, the tenor of politics, of society right now in the United States. It was seen as refreshing, the idea that people could take this day, the 4th of July, this American holiday, the national holiday, and use it to talk about community rather than to talk about the politics.
And yet a lot of the criticism of the celebrations yesterday centered around the fact that some saw the president as using this event, these celebrations, to politicize Independence Day, to militarize it. How do you see that?
Well, I mean, that critique is valid. And, you know, he came into a pretty heavy critique from current and former officers in the U.S. military who said, you know, the greatness of our military is that it has civilian leadership. The greatness of the United States democracy is that it is led by its values and not this institution, the military, which is powerful, but is not what we want to emphasize in our society. That is a valid critique, and that is a big departure from the past.
All right, Tyson Barker, Program Director and Fellow at the Aspen Institute, Germany. Thank you for sharing your insights with us this morning.
Thank you.